So you won't go back and edit that later? You'll just leave it?
A little bit, yeah, but I want it to stay a little wild. I want it to still have some twigs in its hair and mud under its fingernails. I want it to still be a little dirty.
I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrzych.com or on Instagram at heathergrzych. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Today, I'm here with Meredith Heller. She is the author of Writing by Heart, Write a Poem, Save Your Life, and several poetry collections. A poet, singer-songwriter, avid nature lover, an educator with degrees in writing and education. She leads workshops online and in person at schools, juvenile detention centers, women's prisons, and wellness retreats. Thanks for being here today.
I am so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's really great to meet you.
Thanks, you too.
So you are not a new author. This is your second book. But one of the things I found super fascinating about you going from into writing was that you were a body worker for a really long time.
I thought you might bring that up. Being the work you do. I was a body worker for 27 years. And I specialized in doing rehab of spinal cord injury patients. And I really learned, probably like you, working with hundreds of thousands of bodies over those years, that the body holds all of our stories of our lives. And if we invite it, it will teach us its language, its story, its medicine, its magic, how to heal it, what it needs. So body language in the new book, Writing by Heart, is the biggest chapter. And we go through different body parts and give them a chance to tell us their story, their war stories and their wound stories, their glory stories, their celebration stories, their, I didn't even know this story was their stories, everything. And I love working with the body with people because it's right here. And we have to get out of thinking mind in order to feel and to access the information present in the body. And I always invite people to be willing to not know we already have the answer. I don't know what my knee is going to say today. I don't know what's bubbling up in my belly today, but I'm willing to not know and find out what my body wants to tell me.
Beautiful. As you were going through all the different types of stories that a body could tell.
Yeah.
And you said, a glory story. I was like, what's a glory story that a body has? What's that? Tell me about a glory story.
That's so great. I love that. I'm actually going to write that down because sometimes I don't know what I say, but I love glory story. I might use that one. You can use that too. We can all use that. This is what I did. Put that at the top of your page and write off of it. Glory story of the body. A glory story of the body is the body enjoying itself. The body being totally at home in itself. The body showing you how it wants to move or how it wants to be still and rest. The glory when we are at one with the listening and the heeding what we hear. That peace that is like, this is it. This is my truth in my body. That's a glory story.
That's so different than what I was envisioning. I was envisioning I won the tournament. and this bicep, or this arm hit the winning home run.
Those are welcome too. Yeah. More from that deep listening, like the deepest ear of the body, where we hear.
Where is that deepest ear?
Where is that? Yeah, where is that? That is such a beautiful question. I think it's in the heart, the ear of the heart of the body, of the being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. I definitely noticed that about your book. And as a person who wrote nonfiction and now I'm getting into fiction and, seeing how nonfiction can be informational or sensory in the same way that fiction can. They can both kind of go on different pathways. I'm one of these people that's very exposition heavy. I like to explain everything, and everybody in my writing group is always like, show us, don't tell us. Yeah, but, so it's fun to think about body experience in terms of writing because that's where you get the sensory details for creating a visualization of anything, whether it's recalling a memory or creating something that never existed before.
Yeah, that's such a great point. It really is. It's right here. Felt experience, sensory experience. Your body's going to tell you the truth, and your body's going to keep telling you the truth until you listen. But one of the things that you said was so interesting that you tend to explain things. But I also wanted to point out to you that you have a superpower around asking questions.
Ooh.
Already you've asked such beautiful questions, like when you asked, where is the ear of the body? So just to add that into your how you understand your own writing process, you're also a great question asker.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I guess maybe that comes from me having a market research background too, but just like you being a body worker is informing a lot of the perspective that you come from. And also thinking all of us who've done some kind of healing work, whether it's a psychologist or a massage therapist or an acupuncturist or a medical doctor or anybody who's dealing with someone else's pain, negativity, etc. We've heard a lot of things from people. And do you think that, because I feel this way sometimes, I feel like sometimes I just need a way to release the pain of others that I hear. And sometimes that comes out in writing.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. As you were saying that, I was going in a little bit of a different direction, but I want to address both. So, on the one hand, writing is definitely a release for what we're feeling, as well as a mirror. When we write it, when we're able to name the overwhelm of feeling, when we can name it and give it a shape, then we can actually begin to work with it and even move pieces around to make conscious choices about how we want to navigate that feeling or that thing or that whatever, right? But I hear what you're saying also, the need to release the pain that you witness in others. That's a beautiful thing. As you were communicating that, where I went was, yes, I too have heard every note and every shading of color, of pain and constriction and loss and longing and heartache and body ache. For me, it allows me to hold space for whatever shows up in the people in my workshops, even to reflect that back to myself. All of me is welcome here. All of my hurt, all of my sorrow, all of my pain, all of my longing and loss, as well as beauty and bravery and brilliance and desire and love and enthusiasm and passion. All of it is welcome, is part of this human experience. How can I keep making more room for the wholeness of this experience, of this grief?
That's really important because I think a lot of people, whether you're writing or holding things in our heads, and we may think that we're experiencing something so horrible and may not want to share it. And then there's something about being exposed to such a variety of human experience. And like as soon as it comes out, people don't react to it, or like it's just there, that there's a sense of freedom that comes from people when it's okay to share.
Totally. And to be witnessed takes whatever that, hurtful or small feeling is out of the place of shame and hiding. And this is one of the beautiful things that happens in the workshops as a group is that we hear people's stories through their poems, and we're sharing our stories and being witnessed. And so we get the commonality of the human experience, and we realize we're not alone. We have the same hopes and fears and needs and dreams and desires as all human beings. So there's a commonality. We're not alone. And paradoxically, our story is unique and it matters. We matter. Our story matters. And how we weave it into the whole matters and is necessary.
Yeah. So that's actually a really interesting thing in terms of everybody has a story. How does a person know? Because some people write, like for years, I just wrote for me, right? How do you know when you should share your work with other people versus like just use it as your own mirror?
See, that's another superpower question.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Only you know. And you only know when you know. I mean, I started writing as a kid. I really started writing as a teen. I left home early. I left home at 12, 13 years old and raised myself. And poetry writing saved my life. That's where the first book came out of, write a poem, save your life. I tell my story, an iceberg, the tip of the story, in the introduction to the first book. And I didn't share my stuff for 20 years with anybody because it was my refuge. It was how I prayed. Writing, and also I'm a singer-songwriter, so music as well. And when I did start sharing, I think it was music, a song first, and I had people come up to me in tears, thanking me because I had put what they were feeling into words and into shape and into a melody that helped them to feel what they were going through and helped them to express and hold what they were going through. And that's when I kind of realized it's bigger than me. It's mine. I shape it, but it's bigger than me. And it wants to come through as a unifying thread that brings us all together, that teaches us how to do this human being thing we're doing, this taking in and expressing out.
Yeah. What do you think the common misconceptions are about writing? Can you think of any misconceptions?
Yes, that it has to look a certain way or sound a certain way or sound like somebody else. The personal ones are, of course, like anything and everything we do. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. It sucks. The inner critic. Nobody will like this. And so in my invitations, whether you're working with the book or you come to my workshops, I say, first and foremost, you're writing for yourself as a place of healing and self-discovery. If you choose to share it beyond the circle of workshop, fantastic. You're letting somebody into your world, into your process, sharing something that's beautiful and vulnerable. And that again grows community and intimacy and allows us to be seen, which is so healing. But the critic is big in all of us. We have been enculturated to, we're supposed to be and act and talk and look and do a certain way. And I think so much of what I'm inviting in the book and in my workshops is to find out what's true for you with that ear of your own heart. What's true for me? What do I love in this life? What am I willing to commit my passion to that nourishes me? And from a place of being nourished, offer to nourish others.
Yeah. And people, I think, in life seem to struggle a lot with finding their voice. And how do you think, because I feel like it's related to what you just said, how do you recommend people find their unique voice to discover it and hone it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. One of the ways is by giving ourselves permission to explore and experiment, otherwise known as play. In this space of deep play as children, we're not self conscious. We say yes to what arises. We make room for imagination, right? So, like, if you tell me, if we're kids and we're playing together and you tell me, Meredith, there's a huge turquoise mountain and we're going to go through it to visit the dragon. I don't say, wait a minute, mountains aren't turquoise. I say, let's go, right? So it's this welcoming and saying yes to. And in the creative process, this is how we build trust with our muse, with deep psyche, with listening to ourselves, with this breathing cycle of taking in the information, breathing out the expression. And in terms of finding your voice in writing, a great thing to do is to read what you've written out loud to yourself. You get that instant feedback, and there is this, you know, when you've hit your rhythm, like you know when you're in your stride, because you know in your deep self what you sound like. Like if you're kicking a great story with your bestie and you're in the flow and you're in the vibe and you're telling what happened, that's the voice you want. That one where you know you and you're being true to your rhythm, to your breath, to your heartbeat, to the way you explain things, what's important to you in that moment. That's the voice you're looking for. That's the voice you want to write from. That's the voice that's fulfilling.
Yeah, it's, I think, being a yogi and being so focused on direct perception. I will say it's been super weird to go into fiction and write fiction and be like, wait, is it okay for me to be like spinning out into this little world that doesn't exist? And I think it is actually, because I've thought about it a lot. And I'm like, as long as you know where you are and you could get back there, you know, it's like you go on a little path in the woods, you could go out and get lost, or you just know where you came off, where that the reality path is. You just need to know how to get back there.
Yeah. So, right. So you need the map. You need to create a map. And I think all writing is a map back to self. And also to be able to hold both, if not at the same time, then like you're saying, know how to get from one to the other. But even to hold both the way we do in this kind of personal self-reflective writing, when we're calling and summoning ideas and images and information from deep psyche where the metaphors live, where we don't know what's going to show up, but then boom, a metaphor shows up and it's like, oh my God, that's it. Or the imagery, oh my God, that's it. That encapsulates what I'm going through. And we so often get really useful information from allowing imagination, muse, deep psyche, whatever you want to call it, life force, to inform us in the ways of being that are deeper or beyond just normal beta brainwave. And that's where it gets really juicy.
Yeah. Let's go a little deeper into metaphor. And how do you think metaphor is important? What is a metaphor? Like, let's talk a little bit about metaphor.
Okay. So a metaphor is when we take two unrelated images or concepts and we connect them. So I could say, and it tells a whole story with just a couple of words. Okay. So for example, I can tell you, I'm a really deep person. I have lots of moods. I have highs and lows. I have good days and bad days and lots of depth and sparkles on the surface, right? I could tell you all that about me, or I could just tell you my heart is an ocean. That's the metaphor. My heart and the ocean. Because you know about a heart and you know about an ocean, when I tell you my heart is an ocean, you know a lot about me without me having to explain it all to you. That's metaphor. an identification. My heart is ocean. And then you have the simile, which is similar. My heart is like an ocean. It's not quite an ocean, but it's like an ocean. And at different times you want one and different times you want another. I tend to be very direct. So I tend to go for metaphors more than similes. My heart is an ocean. Try to argue with me about that, you know? And so metaphors are great in the way that they communicate a lot very quickly and with an image to anchor it. Also, it's a beautiful way to challenge your own mind. You know, like, so what's your heart metaphor, Heather? My heart is
regular. It's an adjective. This is that nonfiction writer in me. Just
what about an image?
A metronome.
Oh, that's beautiful. My heart is a metronome, right? On the beat, dependable, trustworthy, holds it down. I can count on it. It knows when to come in. It's going to keep me regulated. I get all that about you in that metaphor.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's definitely fun. It's definitely, you know, more poetic in a way to use language like that.
Definitely poetic. Yeah.
So you brought up earlier the inner critic.
Yeah.
And everybody seems to have one at different times. Some people all the time. Some people, you know, it shows up everywhere. But how do we know when something really does need to be edited? Because if we've always got this critic going, how do we know when we should listen to it?
Interesting question. I guess I'd start by saying everything needs to be edited. But that's my Virgo moon. Everything needs to be edited at least 200 times and simultaneously leave it raw. You know, it depends. I mean, it depends if you have a specific audience. I mean, you and I have books. So like I spent 2 years editing Writing by Heart to make it sing and shine. You know, if I'm writing a piece while I'm hiking, which I often do, I like to keep it raw. I like it to have that purity and that rhythm of my walking stride in it. And I don't want to over edit that.
So you won't go back and edit that later? You'll just leave it?
I will, but a little bit. Yeah, but I want it to stay a little wild. I want it to still have some twigs in its hair and mud under its fingernails. You know, I want it to still be a little dirty, you know, in a dirt kind of way. But I think really the best way to answer that is it depends on who your audience is, if you have an audience that you're writing for, and then which way you sculpt the piece that you've written to be accessible or to convey and communicate what it is you're trying to transmit through that piece. And then what people often ask is, what do we do with the inner critic? And how do we work with the inner critic? And I have two main ways. One, kick it out and lock the door. And if that doesn't work, like mine is very stubborn, they'll find any little open window and come back in. The other way is to invite them over for tea, make sure you know what their favorite cookie is, and sit down and have a conversation with them. Why do you talk to me this way? What is it that you want from me? What do you want me to know? And by the way, could we be friends? I'm sure you have something I can learn. And I bet there's something that you might be able to learn from me. Is there a way we can meet halfway? Can we support each other? You need to be here for some reason. Let's figure out why. But I need to be here too, in a way that allows my freedom of expression. Can you give me some room, please? And have another cookie while you're at it.
Yeah. Editing's, I think everybody has to do it in their own way. I always get headaches when I edit.
That's quite an interesting sign there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must be going like furrowing my brow.
Right. And squeezing yourself down, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, how can you edit and breathe at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. The yoga of editing.
I will not write that book. Somebody else is going to have to write that one.
Me either. I know. People always say, is there a book, Meredith, that edits the way you do? And I say, I edit by feel.
Yeah.
For me, it's the music. It's the musicality. And it's the words and the phrasing and the resonance between the words, and even just like music and shape, the space between.
Mm,
And for me, it's something that I feel.
yeah. So do you think everybody is a writer deep down inside?
I think everybody can write. I definitely think everybody can write. I think there are some of us who writing chooses. I feel like writing chose me. I started writing short stories when I was about 5. And I say the same about poetry. I really dug into the poetry when I was a young teenager and had left home and was really lost and confused and very depressed and very overwhelmed. Nothing to hold on to, nobody to hold on to, no support. And poetry found me. And I would get the first line of a poem or a song in my left ear, like a lifeline, like a work permit that said, stay here, find the words, shape a piece that helps you hold the loss and the longing and even make meaning and beauty.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. And I guess as opposed to sculpting or, some other art form, because gosh, I think an increase in instability in anybody's life, right? Wouldn't the most solid thing to be to like grab some clay, and work in the clay?
Yeah, yeah. Get our hands involved, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah, and unfortunately, many of us haven't had the experience or the fluency with clay. Whereas for most of us, we grow up doing some kind of writing. So to grab a pen, otherwise known as what I call our magic wand, and put it to paper. And I always ask people to write with pen and paper rather than tap on keys because it engages the body and the nervous system and heart, arms, and hands as extension of the heart. And we've been doing this for thousands of years, this dancing across paper with pen and just to see what shows up. Have a conversation with yourself on paper. If you don't want anyone to see it, rip it up, burn it, throw it away. Who cares? But talk to yourself. Make a refuge. Make a friendship. Make a place where you can be absolutely honest about anything that's happening in your life. Where else can you be totally honest? You know, you can in your writing. Who's there with you? You, listening to yourself, discovering. Hopefully, you get to the place where you don't know. And then you tell yourself something or you get something from deep psyche. Boom. I didn't know I knew that. And that is so important. And now I do know. And that's when your writing becomes very alive. And that's what keeps you coming back to your writing because it's a place of discovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely. It's really different, to have a day where you're writing and you're just like trying to eke out the words. And then all of a sudden you're shocked about what's on the paper and you just want to keep going to like find out what's there.
Yeah, when you're in creative flow.
Yeah.
When we're plugged into creative flow, we are part of something that's bigger than us. And it's like we are a conduit for life force, and it's flowing and it's delicious and it's innervating and thrilling. And, cancel whatever you've got for the rest of the day because you want to grab it by the tail before it runs away.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't get long periods like that because I have 7-year-olds, but
Oh, yeah.
I might have that for a short period.
Yeah, then you just got to gather it really fast. Like you come upon a bush that's just covered in blueberries and you have 20 minutes and you got to grab every blueberry.
Yeah. I love that. Did you know I grew up picking blueberries?
No, but I'm very psychic. So, okay. See, I didn't know where that one came from and now I do.
Who are some of your favorite writers?
Definitely Mary Oliver for poetry. As we were talking before we started our interview, I grew up reading science fiction and sci fantasy. That was my love as a child. Ray Bradbury, Zena Henderson, Arthur C. Clarke. I love a great fiction adventure story with really strong female characters, really strong female protagonist. I loved Ahab's wife, Sina Jeter Naslund. I loved the time traveler's wife. I'm forgetting her name, Audrey Niffenegger, I think. Poetry, my favorite poet growing up was E. E. Cummings because he was a revolutionary, because he played with grammar, he played with words. He said, the rules don't have to apply to me. I can change the rules. And I think that's one of the reasons why poetry is so exciting for me, because most of the rules never worked for me. I didn't fit in the boxes. And so with poetry, I can have it be however I want, whatever I want to create. I can create something new. I love Pablo Neruda. I love Octavio Paz. I love magic realism. So I love knowing that you are doing science fiction. That's a kind of magic realism. There's another book I love, Shark Dialogues by Kiana Davenport. It's the history of Hawaii told through 4 generations of women. And the grandmother is a kahuna. And there's magic realism. I like magic realism. For me, magic has always been something that's real, part of my life. I like bending the lines. And I like writers who are willing to bend and blend those two worlds, like we were talking about, the reality and the imaginative. And when people work along with the book, and if they come to workshop, they can write in any form they want. So I'm now using poetry as an umbrella term for this kind of personal, self-reflective, expressive writing. So you can come work with the book or come to workshop and write poetry, prose, story, mind spill, heart spill, song lyrics, make up your own form. Just write now, right now, not later, right now.
Yeah. When you, in your workshops, you must have people share. I'm assuming you have people share their work
Every
at the
time we share,
workshop.
every time.
Can you give me an example of maybe some of the, I want to say like ground rules, I guess, to like giving feedback that you recommend in the group setting? Just because I know that it can be difficult. The feedback situation can get difficult and sometimes depending on the type of writing that you're doing.
That's a great topic. Yeah, it's so true. So, first of all, my workshops are geared for generative writing rather than editing. And I'm clear with people about that. We're not doing deep dive editing. We're not really giving editing suggestions. I might give some if somebody types their piece up and sends it to me. So, in the workshops, we meet once a week for 5-week series. Then we take 2 weeks off, give people a breather, give me time to create the next workshop, and then another 5-week workshop. And we go this way through the whole year. So you travel through that 5-week writing journey with a cohort that you bond with. We laugh, we cry, we support each other, we celebrate each other. And it's just incredible experience. For the feedback, I give a lot of the feedback, not in terms of editing, but how pointing out lines in a person's piece that sing, that shine, when someone reads their piece, and we always share every class. We write in class and share. There's a quality and a tone that happens in a voice when someone hits their truth. And I'm listening with that deep ear for that moment. And so when I open the floor for people to feed each other back, the way that I have them do it is to feed back a line from that poet's piece that moved you, that sparked your muse, that brought your tears, that gave you goosebumps, that went, oh, that line, that idea, that, right, that wording. And then we say it back as if we are feeding that poet and that now living being, otherwise known as the poem. We are feeding them something sacred because we are. And so then that poet gets this chorusing of lines from their piece. And in doing that, they and everybody else in workshop begin to tune to the kinds of lines that sing and shine.
I love it. And my imagination was going, as you were explaining this, to politicians and how people criticize politicians. I don't know why. And I was like, imagine if you just, gave a politician feedback about the lines that you liked. I was like trying to superimpose your method onto like our process of.
Maybe they would become good people. Right?
Because I feel like people's worst critics come out with certain types of forums and certain types of content.
Yeah, we project that. Yeah, right. That's probably a really good reason to not have people give each other feedback in workshops. Another great thing that we do in workshop, which we just did this past week of workshop, is I'll have someone read their piece and then this time tell us which was the most potent line for them in their own piece. And then we all unmute, and this is on Zoom, and everybody knows not more than one person can talk on Zoom or it's a cacophony. So we all unmute, like 8 to 10 people, and we say that line back to them in this cacophonous chorus until it's just ringing through them. And it's beautiful. Mostly people just laugh in receiving and delight, and we have a lot of fun.
That sounds super fun. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Final question. What does the wisdom of the body mean to you?
Well, the wisdom of the body is that my body is probably the wisest being I will ever have an intimate relationship with in this lifetime. My body knows how to heal itself. It knows how to take in nourishment and turn it into growing itself in the ways it needs to grow even more. When it needs greater attention from me, it usually hurts or cries or screams. I think that the body is my deepest mentor and teacher and lover and muse, and yay, body.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing, and tell people, please, how they can get in touch with you, how they can learn about your books, your workshops.
Thank you. I've so loved being here with you today, Heather. It's been so fun. Thank you. MeredithHeller.com. MeredithHeller.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. MeredithHeller.com will give you everything. And my books are everywhere books are sold. Go to your favorite bookseller. Writing by Heart. Write a poem, save your life. Get one for you. Get one for your friend who wants to write or loves to write or is curious about writing. Each page in this new book, Writing by Heart, is a doorway that will help you write yourself home to love, to being here.
Yeah. And everybody needs a little bit of help with that sometimes.
Oh, we really do.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you are embarking on a fertility journey and are ready to have your mind blown about what your body is really capable of and how it's impacted by the environment, then check out my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility. You can actually download the introduction to the book for free on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Read the intro for free and then buy the rest of this fertility enlightening book pretty much anywhere books are sold. You want a full human experience when you seek a healthcare provider, and you don't want 15 minutes with someone who can't even try to find out the root cause of things because they're so overwhelmed themselves. You have a body, a mind, a heart, and dare I say it, even emotions. You're not crazy. Everything does affect you, and it's possible to feel better if you have the support you need. Set up an appointment with me to heal naturally. Go to heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, Grzych.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.